My presentation this morning is entitled The Pastor, the District, and Church Administration. Okay. My name is Robert Muzira, currently pastoring Chiremba West District. Chiremba West District is 9 congregations, 8 organized churches, and 1 company. And the district is around the Hatfield in Harare. Having said that, my presentation is an extract from the document that I wrote in 2010, which was entitled The Role of the Pastor in a Multi-Church District in East Zimbabwe Conference. And that time when I wrote this document, I was pastoring the same district that I am currently pastoring. Okay. You can get this document on Andrews University academic website. The same presentation that I'm going to make today is also an extract from the book that I wrote a few years ago, which is entitled Called and Empowered for Mission. I use it as a textbook when teaching 2 of the classes at undergrad. You can access it on Amazon. Okay, it's there on Amazon. It has been on Amazon for a couple of years now. Okay, so I'll be basically talking about calling and empowerment in the context of mission as a district pastor. You also get this one. It's also on Amazon, Son of Petition and Must. It's an exegesis of 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, verses 1 to 2. Having said that, my presentation is going to cover the following: introduction, pastor's challenges in a multi-church district, empowerment, calling and gifting of all believers, common terms used in the New Testament, New Testament church, early SDA church system, the role of the pastor in a multi-church district, pastor's administration responsibilities, training models used in Chiremba West District, and the organogram, and eventually the conclusion. And I'll try to summarize the presentation. The slides are quite many, but I'll zero in on what I think is critical. As we take off, allow me to say, all things being equal, every Christian is created for ministry, saved for ministry, called into ministry. We are also gifted for ministry as clergy. We are authorized for ministry, and we are commanded to minister. We are to be prepared for ministry, and we are needed for ministry, and we have to be accountable for ministry. And eventually, all things being equal, we are going to be rewarded according to our ministry. Okay. Having said that, what I have picked up working as a district pastor for a couple of years is that there are quite a number of challenges that district pastors tend to there are quite a number of challenges that district pastors tend to meet or face on a daily basis. Sorry for the hiccup. I was trying to switch off the other gadget because I was using 2 gadgets concurrently, just in case of emergency. Okay. So there are a number of challenges. Okay. I'm trying to adjust something here, or I just leave it like that. Okay. Sorry for that hiccup. A number of challenges that district pastors tend to meet, like high membership to pastor ratio, keeping and nurturing of new members, high expectations from the membership, conduct funerals, attending birthdays, answer theological questions, attend church board, resolve conflicts in churches and in homes, provide spiritual direction to the church members, visit all churches on a regular basis, and also visit church members, be it at their workstations or in their homes on a regular basis, acquire church stamps for new members, okay? And to divide one's time intelligently, and lack of quality time with family. So these are some of the challenges that as clergy we tend to meet, and these challenges are not exhaustive. Okay, allow me to translate. When you get to the Bible, talking about empowerment, calling, and gifting of all believers, clergy included, we see the calling of Abraham by God in Genesis chapter 12. And when Abraham was called by God, he was given a special task. We also see the calling of the Israelites, okay, in Genesis chapter 22. They were called to achieve something. They were supposed to be ambassadors of God. We also see the calling of the church. We also see the calling of Rahab in Joshua chapter 2. Not only that, we see calling of Ruth, in Ruth chapter 1, calling of Samson, and calling of the 12 disciples in Mark chapter 3. There are quite a number of terms that are used in the New Testament, and I am going to use some of these terms interchangeably. Okay, we have terms such as priest. Priest ordinarily refers to clergy or laity, and at times also refers to priesthood of all believers. We also have another term called apostle. I will not labor you with the Greek terms, but you can read on your own. Apostle, those exercising authority over other believers in the New Testament. We also have terms such as elder, okay, and elder, we are basically talking about an elder, someone of authority, a referral person, as it were. We have terms such as bishop. Bishop also can also mean elder or a referral person, as it were. Then we have the word deacon or minister diakonos. It is both a clergy term and a lay term, according to Burrell, 1998. And we do have a term, shepherd or pastor. In ancient Greek, this term was used more closely associated with leader than caregiver. Okay, and having said that, you will notice, moving to the New Testament, the New Testament church had a defined clergy, but their job was far different from the primary job of clergy today, or from the job of pastors today. The New Testament clergy evangelized and administered, but did not provide primary care to any particular congregation. Okay, that work was designated to lay leaders. Okay, and you also notice in the New Testament that the church does not have a ministry. It is actually ministry itself. All members of the community of believers participated in the one ministry of the whole church. And we also see that the church was organized around the giftedness of the members, rather than hierarchical or having an organogram or having a hierarchical structures of authority and power. Okay? You also notice that the New Testament church was organized specifically for missionary purposes. Okay, and because of that, it was so much concentrated in Jerusalem up until persecution was instituted. Okay, and let's briefly talk about the early SDA church system. I have briefly talked about the New Testament church. When you look at the Adventist church, in its early days, you will notice the Adventist church did not want to be institutionalized, for fear that the experience of the clergy, the experience of the leaders amassing all the power and wanting to be mediators between men and God would be repeated. So we were conscious of that challenge of having power in one person or in a few individuals in the church. You also noticed, according to Brewer, 1998, that as an Adventist church, we believed that if they were to be organized, they must do so biblically rather than simply copying existing organizational structures. The Methodist organization influenced the Seventh-day Adventist Church's organization. I guess you know that as theologians from your church history. As we were being organized into a church as the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we developed a lay-driven, non-clergy, dependent, community-based church. I hope you are following. As we are being organized, our church was organized on a lay-driven, non-clergy dependent, a community-based church. What do we mean by this? Number one, the Adventist church arose from a clear mandate of mission. What we wanted basically to achieve is God's mission. Number two, we have our roots in Methodism, and hence issues to do with methods that some of the methods that we use up to this day. Number three, the inspired guidance of Ellen G. White. And that's why, all things being equal, we always need to go back to the basics of how we were organized. We need to have checks and balances so that we remain as such, so that we don't drift towards the papal system, as it were. For the first 60 to 70 years of the existence of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we had an itinerant clergy. You can check out Pastor Ken Wright. You can also check out James White. The clergy were paid specifically to raise up new churches and not to pastor them. Whenever a pastor was employed, they were employed to raise a church. When they had raised the church, they leave it to the clergy to man it, and the pastor would move to another area and start another church again and leave the laity to do the money of the local churches. You also notice from 1905 to 1930, the clergy in the Seventh-day Adventist Church began to be assigned churches and districts. This did not start before 1900. It only started between 1905 and 1930. That's why you notice that their camp meetings were evangelistic in nature. Their midweek prayer meetings, they were actually evangelistic in nature. Why? Because we were trying to go back to to maintain mission, as it were. Coming to the topic that was assigned to me, what's the role of the pastor in a multi-church district? I'll sum it this way. The role of the pastor in a multi-church district, by multi, we are basically saying you are not pastoring a church, but you are pastoring a couple of churches. Like in my context, I'm pastoring in Harare, but I'm pastoring 9 congregations. What's my role in a multi-church district? Number one, to equip the saints for ministry. My role, your role as a district pastor, is to equip church members for ministry. It's not for you to do ministry, but you are there to equip your church members for ministry. I hope I'm still communicating, Dr. Nzengi. Am I still communicating?
Yes, we're hearing you.
You are loud and clear.
Okay. I'm a teacher, so I want that feedback. Okay. So our duty, our responsibility as pastors, as district pastors, is to equip the saint for ministry. Not only that, we are there to empower the laity to effectively work for God. Laity may not have the theology, they may not have the methods, they may not have this or that. So your role, my role, is to empower the laity. And also training the church, not only the elders, but training the whole church to do ministry. Johnson in 1991 equates training to breathing. The moment you and I cease to breathe, we die. We are pronounced dead. So training as a district pastor, you cannot run away from that. That's our primary duty, to train members for mission. I like this statement from Barrel, 1993, page 49. He has this to say: when the pastor takes over the ministry function of the church and neglect the training function, the church becomes weak spiritually. The moment you and I forget or neglect the training aspect of ministry, we are actually weakening our church members and our churches spiritually. Okay? In other words, it's not your responsibility to impregnate a sheep or a goat. It is the responsibility of sheep to beget sheep. It's your responsibility for goats to beget what? Or to give birth to goats. Okay? So ours is to train. Scholar in one of his writings says, make disciples of the nation from Jerusalem to the end of the world. To be an enabler or facilitator who causes the laity to identify and carry out their ministry. So our role is to be facilitators. Our role is to be enablers of God's ministry in our different districts. Okay? The other role of the district pastor is to communicate the vision and the dreams clearly. When you get the vision from the higher office, your role and my role is to communicate that vision clearly. Okay? The way I would communicate the vision to my current members is different from the way I would have communicated the same vision when I pastored a couple of rural districts. It will still be the same vision, but I'll tone it down to their level. Still the same vision, but it will have to be done in a clever and clearly manner, as it were. Malthus, in one of his writings, says, vision is crucial to any ministry. Ministry without a vision is like a surgeon without a scalpel. A cowboy who has lost his horse, a carpenter who has broken his hammer. The moment you and I lack vision, we are doomed. That's why the Bible record says, without vision, people perish. Okay? The other role of the district pastor, take initiative by setting the pace in ministry actions. Okay? And not only that, we are also there to multiply our influence by transforming followers into new leaders. My assumption here is that you and I are followers of Christ. It's an assumption. Okay? And because we are followers of Christ, we are there to multiply our influence as we go out. Okay? And by the end of the day, we end up transforming our church members into new leaders who are following Christ. Okay? Who are partnered after the ethos and the practice of Jesus Christ. Okay? We are there to establish leadership to direct in our absence. Okay? We establish leadership that will be able to direct God's work even in our absence. Okay? And the other duty of the district pastor is to model the way. In other words, you are not talking about something that you are not practicing. When you are talking about marriage, your marriage should be exemplary. Okay? When you are saying don't have extramarital affairs, you be exemplary as a pastor. When you are saying let's return our tithes and offerings, as pastors, we need to model the way. We need to be exemplary. When it comes to the way we are supposed to live as Adventists, in terms of the health message, we are supposed to lead by example as clergy. I hope I am communicating. Okay? You cannot indicate to the right and go to the left. Our responsibilities, one of the responsibilities as multi-church district pastors is to model the way. Okay? Not only that, strive to have a good climate for your subordinates so that they can operate freely. Try to have a conducive environment so that your elders, your church members could actually input, you actually participate in ministry. Okay, there's this aspect of leading out in leadership and evangelism and also delegation. Okay, as I move on, there are quite a number of administration responsibilities. Okay, I'll sum them up this way. As a pastor, you are supposed to be an evangelist. You are supposed to be an administrator. You are supposed to be a spiritual leader, a preacher, and a priest. You and I are supposed to be shepherds. Okay? You and I are supposed to be promoters of church programs and church activities and church initiatives. When I'm saying church, I'm not only talking about the local church, I'm talking about the Adventist church, the global church, as it were. You and I are supposed to be promoters, okay? Because we are employed by this organization, okay? As a pastor, you're a public relations officer. Let me try to unpack in a few minutes these admin responsibilities of a district pastor. Pastor is an evangelist. You and I are supposed to create an evangelistic church. Remember, we are supposed to model the way. Okay? As we model the way, we are supposed to create an evangelistic church. And allow me to say, with my few years of experience as a district pastor, as an executive secretary, as a departmental director, as a literature evangelist, as a church member, as a pastor, as a church board chairperson, I have discovered that you and I are supposed to create an evangelistic church. We are paid to be holy, as it were. We are paid to create an evangelistic church. Allow me to quote from the pen of inspiration. It has this to say, Ellen White, letter 41 of 1892. The Lord estimates every weight before he allows it to rest upon the heart of those who are laborers together with him. Jesus has borne sorrows and burdens, and he knows just what they are. He has his eye upon every laborer. The Lord telleth the number of the stars, and yet he healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds. The Lord invites you to roll your burden on him, for he carries you on his heart. So in other words, before this burden, before some of these responsibilities are given to you as a district pastor, they are given to me as a district pastor, the Lord estimates every weight. Can someone say amen out there? Okay? Talking about amen. Evangelism, creating an evangelistic church. As a pastor, be capable of ministering the word. You and I are supposed to be capable of ministering the word, not social gospel, not newspaper gospel, not internet gospel, but being capable of ministering the word. Okay? And know the word. Know it. Genesis to Revelation. We are paid to read the Bible. I was saying in one class that I was teaching of pastoral ministry that we as pastors, as clergy, we are paid to read the Bible, to know the word. Okay? Even Ellen White, in one of her manuscripts, page 140, offers the same mentality. And not only the word, we should have sound doctrine. I always say, as a pastor, have correct SDA biblical theology. There are some now who are processed theologians. There are now some who are using higher criticism. There are now some who propagate, what do you call this, that's being propagated in South Africa? Liberation theology, as it were. There are some now among us who are propagating other doctrines. But allow me to say, as Adventist clergy, as district pastors, have correct SDA biblical theology. Okay? And not only that, practice Christian ethics. Okay? Be it on church funds or on dealing with people of the opposite gender. We are talking about evangelism here. Okay? If I had time, I was going to talk about we are living in the last days. These are the shaking days. Okay? Some will not stand the shaking period. So it's your responsibility and my responsibility to stand firm. Number two, pastor is an administrator. You are a district pastor, and yet you are supposed to be an administrator. In other words, when you and I, we are in our district, you are supposed to work, as it were, allow me to indulge, to work as a conference president. You are supposed to work as a conference executive secretary. You are supposed to work as a conference CFO. You are supposed to work as a conference director of all the departments, as it were. So, We are supposed to work as administrators. In what sense? Governance of the church. You need to know the governance of the church. Do we subscribe to this type of governance or that type of governance? Because you cannot run away from this. I've often heard other clergy, my colleagues, saying, no, I cannot do church admin because I was called to be an evangelist. If you are a multi-church district pastor, you cannot run away from being a church administrator of your district or district administrator. Okay, so governance, dealing with church budgets, you need to encourage and work with your churches to have church budgets. Traditionally, before the end of the first quarter of each year, of each academic, of each year as a pastor, that's January to March, we need to put in place all church budgets, okay? And we also need to make sure that trust funds are submitted to the conference, not on a quarterly basis, but on a monthly basis. I know other conferences may say on a weekly basis, but by the end of the month, make sure that all trust funds are submitted, okay? And also looking at the elders' membership records or the church clerks' membership records, working with the different committees. You know that you and I, as district pastors, we are ex-official members of all committees at the local church, all committees at district level, okay? Be able to work with church officers, okay? And follow the Adventist church policy. When it comes to service calls, when it comes to church boards, don't just allow people to come from this conference, that union, that division, without following procedures of service calls. This is to maintain unity. This is to guard jealously against other doctrines that may find their ways on our pulpits, okay? And submittal of all reports to the conference. It is not the responsibility of the elder. It is the responsibility of the district pastor, me included, because I am a district pastor, okay? Let me move in the interest of time. When you read on in the church manual, the pastor is a member of the church board, and you serve as the chairperson, okay? You serve as the chairperson of the church board, okay? If you are overwhelmed, you may delegate certain responsibility of chairing to your first elder, but you may not do this on a daily basis, okay? It is your responsibility to work as a chairperson, okay? And allow me to quote from the pen of inspiration. I like this, letter 8 of 1896, page 6. It says, the whole body is sick because of mismanagement and miscalculation. The people of whom God has instructed eternal interest, the depositaries of truth, pregnant with eternal results, the keepers of light, that is to illuminate the whole world, have lost their bearings. Allow me to say, as a district pastor, don't lose your bearings. You may end up having burnout, your whole body being sick because of mismanagement. You cannot run away from being a manager, from being an administrator of the district. So if you don't have management skills, learn, check with the ministerial department, always check with your executive secretary, your officers. They will be more than willing to assist you so that you will be able to manage your district well. If you know how to manage your district well, you will be able to know what's happening in all the churches. I remember at some point, I pastored 27, 28 congregations, okay? I had no car, I had no bicycle, I had nothing. Except after a couple of months, I ended up buying a motorcycle, okay? But yet I was supposed to manage, administer 27 or 28 congregations, okay? Allow me to move. Ellen White, Testimonies, Volume 7, page 258. She has this to say, let those who attend committee meetings remember that they are meeting with God who has given them their work. Let them come together with the reverence and consecration of heart. What I want from this is that when we do our church board, when we do church admin as district pastors, we need to do them in a business-like manner, not a haphazard way, okay? But we need to do them following the dictates of our admin policies, as it were. Gospel workers, page 447 of this to say, in our business meetings, it is important that precious time should not be consumed in debating points that are of small consequence. The habit of petty criticism should not be indulged. Okay, same thing. We need to do our business in a good way. I like this quotation from Testimonies, volume 9, page 258. It has this to say: let them not waste a moment in unimportant conversation, for the Lord's business should be conducted in a business-like, perfect way. If some member of a committee is careless and irrelevant, let him be reminded of Christ. They cannot pull apart, they will draw with Christ. In other words, when we are doing church admin, when we are having church boards, when we are having church business meetings, I know Dr. Jande is going to talk about business meetings. When we are having departmental meetings, at church level or at district level, let's have those meetings in a business-like way. In other words, before you go as a pastor, know the agenda in advance. Discuss with the board of elders, with the department heads, the agenda and the direction that you want to take as a group. Okay? Don't get to know the agenda when you are in a meeting. Know the agenda, get to know the agenda well in advance, and try to work on it together with the different subcommittees in advance. I hope I'm still communicating. Number 3, pastor, still working as an administrator. You are there as a spiritual leader, you are there as a preacher, you are there as a priest. Remember, your office is highest and important. You are supposed to work as a spiritual leader. And I want to say, I want to challenge you as a district pastor, as I challenge myself as a district pastor. The pastor's study, the pastor's library should be rich. Okay? Do you have good Bibles? Do you have good Bible commentaries? Do you have Bible study guides? Do you have Spirit of Prophets? Do you have a church hymnal? Do you have the current church manual? Do you have the current church policy? Do you have the Elders Handbook? Do you have the 28 fundamental beliefs and other documents that are needed for you to operate as a pastor? You and I cannot afford to work as spiritual leaders, as preachers, as priests without the necessary tools. I'm assuming that you are using your money for book and equipment to enrich your library. That's why even that aspect of book and equipment was set aside by the church ordinarily if funds are available, so that we could use that money to enrich our libraries. I've just posted a picture here of part of my library. It is not the whole library, but it is a section of my library. I was not able to capture the other sides for obvious reasons. This is part of the library. It's not the whole library. So what am I saying? Our libraries should be rich. Our libraries should be rich as clergy. Okay? And you cannot afford to have few Bibles. In my library, I have more than 15 Bibles, different versions, different languages that I'm well conversant with. So it's important. What I'm trying to challenge is that we have good libraries. If you are to be a good spiritual leader, you need to have a good library. When it comes to the pulpit, as clergy, as district pastors, guard the pulpit jealously. I always say to my church members, I need to know all the preaching rosters. I need to have, actually, I have all the preaching rosters from all my congregations. I can tell that this Sabbath at Hatfield, Maine, so-and-so is going to be preaching. At Logan Park, so-and-so is preaching. At such a church, so-and-so is preaching. Why it's important to have church rosters? They are a must for all churches. That way you will be able to control and minimize other issues that may come on our pulpits. And according to the church manual, our pulpits are not a platform for politicians and party politics. Okay? Our pulpits should remain apolitical. It's not a place for circus and social gospel. Our pulpits are not for reactional sermonizing, are not for unbaptized members to bless. Okay? If you are to invite a personnel from outside the district, make sure that you do that following rules that have been laid down by the conference, as it were. Number 4, as a pastor, in terms of district admin, you work as a shepherd. By this, I mean, identify yourself with the people that you are leading. Okay? In other words, you need to do visitations to those who are rich, to those who are poor, to those who are nobodies in the district. It is our responsibility. I've written here on my notes, I think you can read that. The role of a leader cannot be divorced from the life of the leader. Okay? The greatest leader, Jesus Christ, modeled leadership. He was not a leader by election, yet he was the greatest leader. So your influence as a pastor can influence many people, even way after you are retired, way after you are gone. Visiting the bereaved is important. Shepherd people who are bereaving. Working with children and the youths. Okay? I have no time to read all the Bible texts. Okay? So, Ellen White, when she was writing Testimonies Volume 1, has this to say, the position occupied by my husband is not an inviolable one. It requires the closest attention, care, and mental labor. In other words, you and I, physically, we have to be fit. Socially, we have to be fit. Mentally, we have to be fit. Spiritually, we have to be fit to care for the needs of our members. Allow me to move in the interest of time. Ellen White, Gospel Workers, page 495. Heaven is watching to see how those occupying positions of influence fulfill their stewardship. The demands upon them as stewards are measured by the extent of their influence. Okay? In their treatment of their fellow men, they should be as fathers, just, tender, true. Allow me to say as clergy, life is a vicious circle. Today you are here, tomorrow you are there. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Heaven is watching to see how we practice our stewardship, how we deal with fellow men, whether we are just or we are not, whether we are tender or we are not, whether we are true or we are not, or we are indicating to the right, yet we are going to the left. We are supposed to lead by example. Okay, allow me to move. As a promoter, you and I are promoters. In other words, there are periodical campaigns or initiatives that are initiated by the higher office. Your responsibility and mine, you and I are supposed to to campaign or to propagate these things that are being propagated. Okay, like this time around, the church, it appears, is talking about evangelism. Okay, that's not to say we leave other duties. Yes.
I am giving you 5 more minutes.
Oh, I thought my presentation was for 45 minutes and I've gone for 38 minutes. It's okay. Okay. You are supposed to work as a promoter. I'll keep other things. A pastor as a public relations officer. It's important that you and I work as public relations officers. I want to share this model that I've used in my district, and it has worked in my context. The model that I'm using, I do, you observe. In other words, I started by modeling, doing certain things, training them to do certain things as they were observing. Okay. Second time, we were doing it together, correcting each other. Even when we went to Chipinge, we were camped there for 2 weeks, doing business together, doing evangelism together, correcting each other. Then the last model, you do as I observe. They will be working as I'll also be observing what they will be doing, encouraging them when I see areas where they need attention. I'll also assist them and help them in training. Okay. I also developed an organogram that I'm currently using. You don't find this in the church manual because in the church manual it appears, it talks more about a church pastor. As a district pastor, I came up with this model, okay, where as a pastor, I have the district executive that will work with district committees that I've set aside, district committees, and these district committees are headed but they are elders who are responsible for these district committees. For example, personal ministries. I pick personal ministries directors from all the churches, personal ministry secretaries from all the churches. That's their committee. but the head of that committee will be a serving elder. I pick up pathfinders from all the churches, the leaders. Okay, we select their leaders, and they'll be answerable to a leader who is an elder, as it were. I hope I'm communicating. Okay, and also you have district subcommittees and district departments and the subcommittees, and obviously they will feed into the local churches. Okay, they have their rules, they have their constitution that I follow. In the interest of time, I will not be able to share it here. But the idea is that they are supposed to work and also feed in, so that by the end of the day, the pastor is working well with the churches and also the district. I'm sharing this. I know that at times we all need a little push. We may be tired, but I want to say never, ever give up. You may be overwhelmed because you have so many churches and possibly you don't have transport or reliable transport, but allow me to say never give up. Allow me to end with this quotation from Ellen White. The work of God in this earth, Gospel Workers, page 352, can never be finished until the men and women comprising our church membership rally to the work and unite their efforts with those of ministers and church officers. Okay, let's encourage our church members. Let's do ministry with our church members. We should not do ministry alone. And if we try to do ministry alone, we will find ourselves tired, exhausted. Testimonies, volume 4, page 69, has this to say: the ministers may do their part, but they can never perform the work that the church should do. So ours as clergy is to equip the saints, and the saints or the members who in turn do ministry. May God bless you as we continue to interact. I'll end here in the interest of time. God bless.